Hello and welcome back to Diddy on Trial with me, Anoushka Mutanda-Dougherty from BBC Sounds and the BBC World Service. Make sure you subscribe to the World Service YouTube channel so you never miss a thing. Today we're going to be examining some of the new allegations in the brand new Diddy documentary, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the rumours around the LA fires and Diddy's mansion. But I have to say, before we begin today, this episode does include some detailed allegations of rape and sexual assault. Helping me unpack it is Rolling Stone's senior investigative reporter, Cheyenne Roundtree. Hi, Cheyenne.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, you're going to be helping us unpack the doc from Peacock today, but this is one of many, including one of yours that's going to be coming out pretty soon.
That's due to air Monday and Tuesday of January 27th and 28th. So at the end of the month, it's a two-part, two-night series.
And we'll have you here breaking it down for us. But today we're going to be taking a look at this doc. So it's made by the streaming service called Peacock. It's called Making of a Bad Boy. It covers a lot of ground in this documentary. It goes from his early life right into him being the mogul that we know him as today. Now, I have to say, in the documentary, there are a lot of allegations, a lot of which are really difficult to independently corroborate. Why is that? We've spoken about this before. The technological landscape was so different. Not everybody had camera phones. No one was doing day in the life vlogs. What does that mean? We have to listen and see for ourselves. Now, we contacted Diddy's team, and this is what they've told us. This documentary recycles and perpetuates the same lies and conspiracy theories that have been slung against Mr. Combs for months. It is disappointing to see NBC and Peacock rolling in the same mud as unethical tabloid reporters. By providing a platform for proven liars and opportunists to make false criminal accusations, the documentary is irresponsible journalism of the worst kind. There is, like I said, a lot in the documentary. We've split it up into our sort of key takeaways. The first one, and I know you wrote this up the other day, that people have really picked up on, is it talks about Diddy's childhood. It tells us a lot about who he was as a young person. It sort of says he had quite a lot of nice things. He was the rich kid in the neighborhood. But the thing I think is going to really catch people's eyes is the accusations about his mum and her parties. Cheyenne, what exactly does it say?
Yeah, so Diddy's old childhood friend, his name is Tim Patterson, and he actually grew up with Diddy. It sounds like Diddy and his mom Janice lived on the top floor, and Tim and his mom lived on the bottom floor, and they became best friends. And Tim kind of walks us through Diddy's childhood about, being bullied, kind of seen as this rich kid. But then kind of as an explanation to how we got here to today, to Diddy facing accusations of physical violence, of sex trafficking, of sexual abuse, he says that Janice would host these kind of wild sexually charged parties that seemed that anyone, he says, was welcome, from people from Harlem. He says pushers, you have drug dealers, you have just this kind of really just kind of this party atmosphere with people of all walks of life there. And he says it wouldn't be uncommon if you cracked open a door and saw people having sex. So he kind of sets the stage that this idea of a sexually charged environment, Diddy kind of was very familiar with from a pretty young age.
And obviously people are going to pick up on this because of the freak-offs, which is what they've listed in the federal indictment as days-long orgies. And they're going to draw a comparison there, which is what's already started happening on social media. It is not illegal to have sexually charged parties in your household, but there were already rumours online that Janice Combs attended the freak-offs with Diddy. So that is just going to add fuel to this fire completely.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard not to kind of jump to that speculation when a close friend that was there is kind of serving that up on a platter.
In the doc, they say they contacted Janice Combs' team and for a response, and she did not respond. We tried to contact her through Diddy's team. They did not respond. We did that 3 times. Cheyenne, did you try and contact Janice Combs as well?
Yeah, I contacted Janice's lawyer and we did not get a response back there. So we'll see if she kind of addresses this when the doc airs.
So that's from his childhood. Then it goes into his time at Bad Boy. Now, a reminder, Bad Boy is the record label that Diddy started. And in this section, we get allegations from a former Bad Boy employee who remains anonymous. Cheyenne, what does he say about Diddy?
This former Bad Boy employee is around in recent years, but he kind of sets the stage about what it was like working for Diddy at this kind of right before his arrest. And he talks about this being a love era and the red lights that we saw throughout the rollout of, the Love album rollout and his recent Instagrams. He kind of says that red light means it sets the frequency for love or making love music or sex, and it's just kind of this idea that anytime you saw a red light when Diddy was around or partying, it had kind of a sexual connotation. So he's just sets the stage for just kind of Diddy's behind the scenes activity in recent years.
He says as well that Diddy showed him a video of two men having sex and then sort of made a remark about this is what you have to do to get to the top in the industry. But when they actually ask this anonymous employee, what did you have to do? The question just sort of hangs in the air and it isn't really answered. What do they say to that exactly?
He was nervous to talk about it. I mean, obviously he's anonymous for a reason. And his kind of explanation was that it's a difficult thing for me to address. And so he leaves it open-ended, but he does kind of talk about just being slowly introduced into this lifestyle. And it did escalate, he alleges, to, this video and hinting that this was what maybe was expected of him at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot with hinting in the doc, and that could be because people do not feel safe enough to say what happened to them. It could be because it didn't happen at all. There's something else that sort of is left to hang in the air as well. He talks about going to parties and helping organize parties and recruiting girls to come to those parties. And he speaks about a specific situation where he saw Diddy take two girls into a room and not come out for 24 hours. And he says they were for sure underage. But that's another thing that sort of just hangs in the air.
I believe, this employee is describing an environment where he sees all of these red flags to him. And I think, maybe like a lot of people are trying to piece together what they witnessed and kind of put it out there and see if it matches a larger pattern of behavior. However, this is a workplace environment.
Mhm.
I know being in a music industry doesn't seem like you're straight up corporate rules and things, but there's that gray area where boundaries are tested and, workplace environment harassment isn't acceptable and you can sue for that and you have rights for that. So what this employee is alleging kind of fits that bill of this idea of misconduct or red flags happening and not really knowing what to do with them.
Now, when it comes to any allegations about underage girls, boys, Diddy's team have been clear, no matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. That's what they told us when we put this accusation to them. Now, I'm going to bring in a listener question here, but it's because it specifically relates to some of the stuff that happens in this doc. So it came through on our WhatsApp number.
Hi there, Clara here. Absolutely loving the pod. Feel like a real expert on this whole trial. So thank you guys so much. I wondered if you could help debunk a myth for me, or maybe there's some truth to it. So my TikTok and Instagram feeds are all of my algorithms basically are full of these conspiracy theories or maybe theories about people who Diddy has fallen out with who've mysteriously died of pneumonia, and particularly his ex-wife Kim Porter. Just wondering if you could debunk um the pneumonia myth for me, please. Thank you.
Cheyenne, just before we start answering that question, who exactly is Kim Porter?
Kim Porter is Diddy's long-term ex-partner, and this is the mother of three of his children. Their twin daughters, and then their son Christian. And Diddy met Kim, well, she worked at Uptown Records as kind of an assistant. But at the time that he met her, she was with another big singer at the time, a singer by the name of Al B. Sure, who she shares a son, Quincy, with. So after this relationship with Al B. Sure, she dates Diddy, and they have a long-standing relationship up until her sudden death in November of 2018.
And let me just say straight out the gate, I've seen the rumours about there being foul play involved in Kim's death. She died in 2018. The coroner's report rules it as lobar pneumonia. Her children have spoken out and said she died of natural causes. They've said, "Our lives were shattered when we lost our mother. She was our world, and nothing has been the same since she passed. While it's been incredibly difficult to reconcile how she could be taken away from us too soon, the cause of her death has long been established. There was no foul play. Grief is a lifelong process, and we ask that everyone respect our request for peace as we continue to cope with her loss every day. We're deeply saddened that the world has made a spectacle of what's been the most tragic event of our lives. Our mother should be remembered for the beautiful, strong, kind and loving woman she was. Her memory should not be tainted by horrific conspiracy theories." And that's from Quincy, Christian, Jess and Delilah. And Quincy dad is not P. Diddy, it's Albie Shaw's son. And Albie Shaw, this is the first time we've really heard from him speaking out in this documentary. What exactly does he say about Kim's passing?
Albie Shore he hints that there is some foul play there. I think it's clear how much he loved Kim and he's still grieving her loss. He looked up to her. He kind of idolized her. Anyone that speaks about Kim speaks about how fantastic and beautiful and just a warm-hearted person she was. And yeah, he seems to believe that there was something not right about that. And he does kind of leave it open-ended, but he is adamant that he believes there was something.
And I mean, for a lot of people, the kid's statement and the statement from the coroner's office would have really put an end to those rumours. But this is no doubt going to restart it because, yeah, he says a lot without saying a lot. He says, "I saw Kim 2 weeks before her murder." Then he pauses and says, "Am I supposed to say allegedly?" So he doesn't come on this doc and say, "This person did this to Kim Porter." But it's sort of allowed to hang in the air there and the audience to draw their own conclusions. And he says, "I saw her 2 weeks before her murder," sort of insinuating that she declined too rapidly for it to be from pneumonia. And our team got in touch with Nick Hopkinson at Imperial College London. He's a professor of respiratory medicine and told us that in the US, 3,000 people aged between 15 and 49 die each year from all types of pneumonia. That's according to the Global Burden of Disease study. So it does happen. But once again, you're sort of left there to draw your own conclusions about Kim Porter's death. And at the top of the episode, we said you have to listen to allegations and make your own mind up. But when you are making your mind up on this allegation, please remember that it is a completely unsubstantiated rumour that both the LA Coroner's Office and Kim's children have denied. Now, we reached out to Diddy's team for comment and they referred us back to the LA Coroner's Office report and Kim's children's statement. And no one is being investigated in relation to Kim's death. But then Albie Shaw kind of doubles down and says, yes, he says she was keeping a diary and that it was discovered. And he said Kimberly is gone because she was going to be Cassie Ventura. Now, Cheyenne, what exactly does he mean by that?
I think we have to, again, kind of make our own conclusions of what he hints at by there. But I think he's indicating this idea that Cassie, Diddy's lawyer, said that she was writing a book before she filed this very public statement. I'll be sure saying Kim was keeping a diary that people have since denied that she was doing, but that's what he says. And he kind of leaves it a suggestion of maybe she was about to talk about something that hadn't been talked about before. So yeah, he puts that out there. It is uncorroborated for now, but he seems to truly believe that there was foul play somewhere in this.
Yeah, and this is not the first time we've heard about an alleged diary or book from Kim Porter, but the children have spoken about this as well. In a statement, they said, "Claims that our mum wrote a book are simply untrue. She did not, and anyone claiming to have a manuscript is misrepresenting themselves." The next thing that's really impactful in this doc is hearing the voice of one of the alleged victims, and it's the first time we've heard this alleged victim speak. She's referred to as Ashley in the documentary, and she's kept anonymous. Her surname is not given, and we don't see her face. But Cheyenne, what has Ashley alleged happened to her?
Ashley filed a lawsuit last year, kind of detailing some of the things that she talks about in this documentary. And she alleges that in 2018, she was sexually assaulted by Diddy, and members of his team watch. And she goes into a lot of detail about how this came to be. She says that she met someone that she describes as a scout for Diddy, that Diddy then later came over to this man's house where she was kind of hanging out, and that this whole kind of encounter happened and she had to escape. And it's a really horrific, very detailed, um, and really unsettling claims.
One thing that really stands out that she says is that at one point Diddy had a knife inside her mouth and then says, "I'm going to give you a Glasgow smile," which is, slitting someone's cheeks. But he's warned against it by a member of his team, saying Diddy's associates would prefer it if she, referring to Ashley, looked normal. She also says that they said to her they could ship her off and sell her to anyone in the world and she'd never be seen again by her parents or loved ones. Now, Ashley did make a police report in 2018 at the time of the alleged incident, and the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department confirmed her report was thoroughly investigated and it was determined the claims were unfounded. Diddy's team said Mr. Combs was nowhere near Orinda, California on the day that she claimed she was assaulted. There's no evidence that Mr. Combs was ever even in the same room as the alleged victim. She's completely unbelievable and no sane person who views the evidence will credit her story. Now, I spoke to the Sheriff's Department. They stuck to their statement that it was thoroughly investigated. I asked Diddy's team if they had proof he was nowhere near Orinda County, and they told me, "Have you asked the alleged victim's team if she has proof of these events, as the burden of proof is on her?" And that is true. The burden of proof is on her because she raised the lawsuit. Cheyenne, the idea that other people were involved with Diddy is something that's alleged in the federal indictment, right? It's something that the government are trying to prove.
Exactly. I think, when you have racketeering, the whole idea is that there's an organization or a system of people helping, the top of the ringleader achieve these alleged crimes. And so Ashley's lawsuit and her claims do point the finger at some of Diddy's employees or associates as, allegedly helping him do the things that he's accused of doing.
It's very impactful to hear Ashley's testimony. She says that, after this alleged incident, she's become a recluse. She finds it really difficult to trust people and she barely leaves the house apart from seeing her parents. So that's what I think some of the key takeaways are from this documentary. Now, I have to say, again, it contains a lot of unsubstantiated claims that the BBC cannot independently verify. Now, we've broken down some of the key moments and provided background, but a reminder, Diddy's team have called this documentary irresponsible journalism of the worst kind. And it's not the first Diddy doc, and it won't be the last Diddy doc, but Cheyenne, thank you for walking us through that today.
Thank you. Talk soon.
But before we go today, of course, it's time for Fact or Fiction. For more than a week now, fires have been burning in Los Angeles, causing death and devastation. But if sifting through Diddy conspiracy theories isn't your morning, noon and night, I can imagine that you're thinking, what on earth does this have to do with the rapper? Some social media users are claiming that the fires were started to burn evidence related to Diddy's case, eliminating anything that could link certain celebs to the so-called Diddy list. So is that true? Well, no, his house hasn't burnt down. His house is still standing. Do we know if it was due to be investigated in 2 days? Well, if it was, they can because it's still standing. But what we know for sure is that it was investigated by the FBI in the raids in March last year. That's it from Diddy on Trial with me, Anoushka Mutanda-Dougherty. Don't forget to subscribe to the World Service YouTube channel so you never miss a thing. And send us your questions at +44 330 123 551. That's +44 330 123 551.